What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a very special discussion video to share with you guys about the original Holy Trinity. We're going to talk all about that, what it means, how it's changed, what it is today, etc. Before we get into that, if you are new to my channel, I upload knife content every day, including knife reviews, knife overviews, unboxings, discussion topics, Knife Guy series on Sundays, a whole bunch of stuff. I've got a sister channel called Silent Complex. Feel free to check that out if you haven't. I also have Patreon, so if you'd like to get your hands on a cool sticker and at the same time support this channel and gain access to my once-a-week Patreon exclusive content, then feel free to check out the link in the description. The support would mean the world to me. I don't know if the merch store is up yet at the time of this video because I pre-record everything. If it is, there will be a link right at the top of the description where you can go get your hands on some cool Metal Complex merch. If not, it will be soon. Anyways, wow, look at that. I got it done in less than a minute. So what is the Holy Trinity? So when I hear people talk about the Holy Trinity now, or when the term gets brought up, a common response to that is, and by the way, this is not going to be structured. If you're looking for a structured video, I've got structured reviews of knives. This is a discussion topic. It's going to be probably a 30-minute ramble. I hear people say things like, my Holy Trinity is X brand, X brand, and X brand. And that's perfectly fine. You can have whatever Holy Trinity you want. Understand that where the term came from is actually 3 specific manufacturers. This was a term that's been used to describe these manufacturers because of what they represented in the knife community at the time and where the knife world was at the time. So anyways, those 3 specific makers were Rick Hinderer, being represented here by the XM18 3.5-inch Gen 6. Mick Strider being represented here by actually a Strider SMF. I realize an SMG would have been a better example, but this is what I've got. And Chris Reeve being represented here by this Sebenza 21. Now, I realize, people want to say, Chris Reeve, I don't think runs Chris Reeve knives anymore. Yeah, I don't think he's involved with the company anymore. I don't know the entire history on that, but that's not what this is about. Things have changed and some things haven't. First, I want to talk about what it was. I suppose here's a, since people are like, well, you should use an SMG. So here's a ProTech Strider collab that's about exactly the same size as an SMG. To give you an example, this is more so the Holy Trinity. These 3 knives specifically, the XM18 3.5-inch, the SNG, even though this is a ProTech Strider collab, and the Sebenza 21. A lot of people view it as those 3 specific knives, and some people view the Holy Trinity as just the makers in general. In any case, this was the original Holy Trinity. So what was the deal with that? Why name these 3 makers? Well, Chris Reeve, I want to say the Sebenza 21 dates back to like the late 90s, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the Sebenza 21's been around for a long time. For those of you who don't know, Chris Reeve invented the frame lock, and he brought S30V. He helped with the development and actually brought S30V to the table for all folding knives, or as a folding knife steel, that was made specifically for folding knives. And then he also developed S35VN. 2 of the only, there's very few steels out there that are actually made for folding knives. So Chris Reeve is in a lot of ways kind of a, like, well, number one, he's a massively important figure in the knife world. The Sebenza 21, arguably one of the most legendary designs that has ever existed, right? Bringing all these elements to the table. This was kind of, for a long time and still today, right, that the Sebenza or Chris Reeve knives was as good as it got for precision manufacturing, premium materials, right? It was the peak of the peak. Yeah, there were custom knife makers making things out of more exact, but, I think the reason people came to that conclusion was it's like, well, coming down to, a tool, right, that is as performance oriented, my God, I'm stuttering a lot today, as performance-oriented as it possibly could be, right? With the most premium materials that you could possibly ask for at the time. I think he originally was making these out of S30V. Yeah, it was very expensive, and arguably, people didn't actually need all that, but it's sort of the culmination, arrived here, and this was created, right? A little bit later. Now, I want to say Mick Strider took off in, I read his history. And for those of you wanting to know, do you know the history of him? Yeah, I know. It's long since over. I don't care about the drama, right? We're talking about the knives. People always bring that up like people don't know. People know. It's long since over. But anyways, Mick Strider, I think kind of his designs rose to famous, specifically the SNG and SMF models, I think in the mid 2000s. I could be wrong about that. But he kind of, was this, he's like, using the same or arguably the same type of premium manufacturing processes and using premium materials, but he was more like the hard use tactical military side of things. Chris Reeve had more of a refined sort of look and feel, and Mick Strider had like the sledgehammer, the bazooka, the heavy machine gun, that was kind of his thing, right? And there was this back and forth, right? Enter Rick Hinderer. Now, Rick Hinderer has been making knives for a long time, and despite being a massive Hinderer fan myself, I can't tell you the exact history on Rick Hinderer. But the XM18 3.5-inch Gen 1 was made, and then I think it rose to popularity during Gen 2, like really peaked in popularity at Gen 2. Massively unavailable, like Strider knives. These were fairly available, but for a long time. These, he started making them, but they weren't production knives, so they were somewhat unavailable. Rick Hinderer knives, sometime at around 2010, 2011, I think, could be wrong about that, started taking off. And his knives also were unavailable. You could buy them direct from him if you were military, law enforcement. I think there was still a waiting period, but you could buy them for $375 or so. Around the time of Generation 3, which is when I sort of teetered into it, this was 2011, 2012, 2013, I think. The demand was so high for the XM18 that the secondary market prices were just insane. $700, $800 for a Gen 2 or Gen 3 XM18. So Rick Hinderer played a role in this because, again, using the same, arguably the same precision manufacturing techniques, the same high-end materials, right? These are all titanium frame locks. At the time, these were S30V transitioning into S35VN. These were CTS XHP transitioning into S35VN, and Mick Strider used a whole bunch of different stuff. I think a lot of S30V, and was there like CTS BD1, and there's some other stuff. XHP was probably in there. Anyways, similar size, titanium frame locks, similar materials. Rick Hinderer was kind of had both elements. It looked a little more refined, a little more elegant than the Strider, but it also looked more brutish than the Sebenza 21. And actually before that, wasn't there? There was an evolution of the Sebenza. When I came into the game, the Sebenza 21 was already a thing, and its predecessor was being phased out. So people, who have a vast knowledge of the history with Chris Reeve knives will be able to correct me. And I fully expect you to, by the way. I don't want to pretend for a second that I know everything there is to know about this topic. So please feel free to add information in for anybody in the comment section. That's completely fine. But anyways, this created the original Holy Trinity because in the forums and anybody at the time who was really, really into the knife world, there was this big collective opinion that these three were making arguably the most precision-made, most dependable, most durable, most whatever cutting tools out there, And yeah, I mean, there's arguments, for or against that actually being the case. That's not the point. This is, whether or not you agree with it, this was the culmination of all of that, discussion and everybody involved with the knife world at the time is that these three were the big three, the Holy Trinity, right? Like I said, somewhat available, pretty hard to get, really hard to get. Right? And at times, that was the case for these two back and forth. Fast forward to today, I'm not going to talk about which one I actually think was best at the time, right? But fast forward to today, and some things have changed and some things have not, right? Now, I believe, and I could be wrong, I think this is the case. I think Chris Reeve's son has taken over the company. These have remained largely unchanged except for the new Sebenza 31, which has introduced the ceramic bearing, ceramic ball detent and lock face thing that they previously did not have on these Sebenza 21s, meaning that little ball that you get on the Inkosi and the Umnumzan is now being applied to the Sebenza 31 models. Rick Hinderer, the thing that people really were bothered by, and I've said this many, many times in this channel, Hinderer knives don't flip. Hinderer knives are too thick behind the edge. Hinderer knives run on nylon washers, and they shouldn't be running on nylon washers because they're really expensive knives, especially then, secondary market, right? Fast forward to today, for those of you who don't know, Rick Hinderer's new tri-way pivot system introduces the feature where you can change out the internal hardware, the pivot hardware, to, if you want nylon, you can keep it there. It actually comes pre-installed with bearings, so you can switch it to nylon if you want, or you can switch it to phosphor bronze. It comes with all of that hardware. It's very easy to disassemble and switch out. The detents have also been fixed, so they flip as well or better than any of the knives that are available today in this configuration. Extremely reliable, and actually I find their flipping action preferable to many other manufacturers out there. They've also changed to CPM 20 CV primarily. However, they still do use S35VN and O1 and some other bizarre steels. They're also substantially more widely available. Rick Hinderer knives exploded. Their knives are available. If you want an XM18 and you want a specific finish and a specific blade, sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to find exactly what you're looking for, but if you want an XM18, you can get one whenever you want, and you'll have a lot of choices. Rest assured, a lot of choices. And all of the really rare hardware that you could never find back then, right? The stuff that he makes that you can switch out, the screws and the scales and the pivots and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you can get all that stuff too. So that's completely different now, and I would say that despite Chris Reeve obviously being very big, makes a lot of different stuff. I mean, these are still widely available in many different configurations. This is not standard. This is actually the people are just rolling their eyes like this amateur. The Insingo blade instead of the drop point blade, but there's still S35VN and titanium. Standard forms come in just regular titanium, bead blasted titanium. They do have micarta inlays, carbon fiber inlays for some more money. They also do Damascus, ladder, and raindrop, and they do the gold thumb studs and the silver thumb studs at True North Knives and blah, 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 blah. They're very available. You want one of these knives right here in a specific configuration, you can find it. And you're going to get it for, a reasonable price considering the caliber that these two are in. Strider, on the other hand, Strider his knives have always been just kind of difficult to get, even when his production doors were open. And by that, I mean, I'm sure a lot of you have read online, the article, Mick Strider closes his doors to Strider knives or whatever. He no longer has the production facility, I guess, but he still makes production Strider knives in small batches, which means you can still get a base form Strider knife and you can still get a Strider MSC or a Mick Strider custom. Both are going to be really difficult to get your hands on, and the customs are going to go for an insane amount of money, right? I think, every now and then I've got people tell me, hey, Monkey Edge just dropped a batch of Strider knives, and they get bought up real quick. If you want a Strider knife, you got to jump on it. Standard production Striders come in either a G10 or aluminum. This is actually aluminum, solid front scale, right? Whereas Rick Hinderer actually has a liner underneath, and the Chris Reeve Sebenza is full titanium, which created a whole nother element to the argument, right? But yeah, you're going to pay more money for a standard SNG in a solid G10 front scale and titanium back scale than you will one of these guys. They're just more rare, right? Whether or not the price is validated, I have no idea. That also created an argument amongst people who were like heavily involved in this Holy Trinity thing. People were extremely opinionated on one side or the other, with one of these manufacturers or with two of them versus the other, right? Hinderers was running on nylon, right? Chris Reeve was full titanium and was using the phosphor bronze washers. Mick Strider was using phosphor bronze washers, but he had a solid G10 front scale, and they were, hard to get. And there was, people arguing about whether or not fit and finish was exactly the same between the three. I mean, no, I don't think anybody has ever argued that Chris Reeve has had basically perfect fit and finish forever, right? But back then, Hinderers, people were like, yeah, I mean, most of them are pretty good, but every now and then there's a little bit of slop. I heard more complaining about Strider knives with a little slop, a little play here and there. And then people were like, okay, well, Hinderer has the flipper tab, right? And Hinderer has the lugs that brace on the frame. Strider has those too. Chris Reeve doesn't have that. His action is like really, it's not the same. It's not as smooth. It's more of a hydraulic action. Then some people argued the hydraulic action was better. And by that, I mean, it doesn't readily drop shut, right? This one is actually really smooth, but it's a different action, right? These were three knives, three makers making knives in the same caliber, but they had just enough of different elements between the three of them that it created a massive argument, right? So it's just this has always been interesting to me because honestly, my now finally having handled all three, I've handled, you guys know, 25, 26 different Hinderers. Actually, more than that in terms of handling. Owned 25 different Hinderer knives. This is the 5th or 6th Chris Reeve knife that I've handled, and this is the first Strider knife that I've handled. I can tell you right now, the quality between the three of these, yeah, they're all excellent, right? I mean, you're going to pay a little bit more money for this guy, but I mean, depending on what caliber, like if we're talking about each of these knives in their base form, what is it? 425 to 450, 425, and what are the SNGs? 475 to 525, something like that, a little bit more. Right around the same ballpark of price, right? You're definitely getting the same level of manufacturing quality. You're going to get roughly the same performance depending on what blade you want. Again, Rick Hinderer knives have a multitude of different blade shapes and different blade thicknesses, so please don't give me that crud about, Rick Hinderer knives don't cut. If you're talking about a fatty Spanto, yeah, you're not going to be slicing tomatoes or skinning toilet paper with that. But can you get a skinny 3-inch slicer? Yeah, and that one's got pretty good cutting performance. It depends on what you want, what you're going to use the knife for. So which one's better is not really, it's not really the topic here. Which one's better for you? That's the one. If you're interested in this Holy Trinity thing and and the history behind it and getting your hands on a knife made by somebody who was part of the original Holy Trinity, then the truth is that Striders are just going to be kind of hard to get. But if you get one, you're going to be happy with it for what you paid for. Rick Hinderer knives, incredibly available, incredibly easy to get what you're looking for the most part. And then Chris Reeve knives, same thing. You're going to get what you want. Now, you have less options in terms of blade shape, and you have no options in terms of blade steel. It's S35VN. You're getting S35VN with this guy, period. But you do get full titanium, and you will absolutely get, perfection in terms of manufacturing. Same with these two, in my opinion. I mean, I've got plenty of examples here, but just based on this, my experience with the Strider, yeah, you're going to get the same thing. Striders are running on phosphor bronze, and so are Chris Reeve. They have not changed anything to bearings. Now, Chris Reeve, like I said, recently upgraded to the ceramic lock surface, which operates in the same fashion, or it has the part of the same idea as a steel lock bar insert in terms of just wear over time. The advantage to a steel lock bar insert is, of course, that the chip can be replaced. And the lock can, essentially the idea is be like new if it ever wears all the way over. Strider Knives is not upgraded to that. Now, I use the word upgraded lightly because a lot of people actually like the titanium and steel interaction. It's actually less likely to slip. Titanium between, or titanium, carbonized titanium on a steel surface is actually, You know, in many cases, people will argue that it's more reliable or safer than a steel on steel contact in a situation like this. And I would imagine ceramic on steel is somewhere around the same vicinity here, right? On top of that, you know, if you're not somebody who flicks out your knives or anything like that, you know, you're definitely going to enjoy the Sebenza more. If you're somebody who likes to flip your knives out, the Strider, or I'm sorry, the Hinderer wins because it has the option for the flipper tab. They also make non-flipper options, but these are certainly the least. I mean, I can do it, and I can do it with, you know, the reverse and the forward, but that's from an enormous amount of practice from handling so many and owning so many, right? But it's definitely the least easy to do that. Strider, you can definitely thumb these guys out. There's no flipper tab, and it is the only one that, in my opinion, has a perfectly executed reverse flick opening mechanism. That hole is just perfect. Ergonomically, in my opinion, and this is crazy, this is, you guys are going to laugh, because you're going, oh, Hinderer. So the Sebenza, it's great ergonomics. You're pretty much dedicated to one position, and that's this right here, given this position, this choil, this primary area for your index finger. Rick Hinderer, it's got good ergonomics. I'm really happy with it. In fact, for a long time, it was, you know, my favorite. The choil on the flippers, you know, it leaves me wanting because there's not a whole lot of room, and it's pretty easy to accidentally run your finger up on the blade. The non-flippers are a little better. You definitely have some customizable room. You know, in my opinion, you've got a lot more options ergonomically than the Sebenza. But I gotta say, ergonomically, the Strider is definitely the best. There is so much room to get. I mean, like, if I was really gonna put some work into a knife, I mean, ergonomics is something that really has an enormous amount of say, in my opinion, on the knife overall, right? If I have, you know, a multitude of customizable or interchange, I don't know, what's the right word? But if there's a multitude of hand positions on the knife where I can be comfortable, right? Then I'm going to like it more. I don't care that the overall, I mean, people are like, well, you don't get nearly as much blade for the overall length of the knife. I don't care. I don't care about that. Even on the SNG, I'll show you the ProTech again. Where is it? Oh my God. The ProTech is the smaller, there it is. ProTech's a smaller version of the SMF, and you know, this ProTech Strider is exactly the same length as a standard SNG, right? This amount of blade is fully, I'm happy to give up some cutting edge to be able to choke up on it like this. Not everybody is, and you don't have to think like me, but I love how many different ways that I can hold this knife. I just like it. It does create for an awkward position for the pocket clip. You can see there. The problem is that the amount of knife that sticks out of your pocket is enormous compared to the, now this is an aftermarket clip, but it holds in the same place. The Sebenza and the Hinderer, right? These two, much less is showing. Yes, you can get aftermarket clips, blah, 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 but that is just the case. So ergonomically, I'm going to give it to, my opinion is Strider. In terms of, let's talk about bang for your buck, truthfully, what you're getting for the money that you're spending. I'm going to give it to, the Sebenza or Chris Reeve knives, because you are getting full titanium and you are getting absolute perfection, as you are getting with these guys, but there's not even variance in how the action feels between, like right out of the box. This one was sent to me by somebody, but the three that I have ordered brand new have all felt exactly the same, even being different models, right? Everything is just exactly this. That's truly very, very precision manufacturing. And then the award for basically customization and getting exactly what you want, I have to give to Hinderer. I mean, like, if you're just like, I just want a really, really good cutting tool, then, you know, you can choose between any of them, but the Strider and the Sebenza will do you just fine. Or the SNG or the Sebenza or the SMF, whatever. But if you're looking for, it's like, I want a good cutting tool, but I want it to be my thing, right? I want all that stuff. I want the cutting performance, and I want, you know, the pretty good ergonomics, and I want the, you know, whether you want the flipper or the thumb stud, that's fine. But truthfully, the main reason to buy a Hinderer knife, you know, beyond that stuff, is the fact that you can make it exactly what you want it to be. right? And that's where it kind of takes the cake for me, and that's why I've bought so many. And that's the genius of Rick Hinderer, is that he's figured out, by of course making a good product and a functional product, but by making it all of the different options widely available to everybody, then you attract a wider range of people. Where he hasn't figured it out is left-handed people. You can get a left-handed scale for that thing and mount the pocket clip on the other side, but it's not a left-handed frame lock. I have never seen or heard of a left-handed Strider. I could be wrong. However, Chris Reeve does offer a left-handed model, right? So there's a whole bunch of reasons to choose or not to choose any of these, and my understanding of the history of the Holy Trinity. In my opinion, it still stands. Some people would say, you should add Medford in there, or you should add Shirogorov, you should add Holt, or you should add Koenig, or ADV, or who else? Ramon Chavez. You could add this. I mean, arguably, a lot of those guys are either super high-end production or full custom or mid-tech. These are all the standard models available between each maker is a high-end production knife, which is why, and they were they were so vastly ahead of everybody else in terms of popularity and in terms of, people's opinions on how knives should be put together that are titanium frame locks. They were so prominent over everything else that's why nobody ever says the original Trinity was anything else other than these three makers, right? I have a feeling that this video is going to spark an enormous amount of argument, but this was really just for entertainment purposes, and because I'm fortunate enough to have one of each in my possession right now, it's odd that 2 years into this channel, this is the first time this has happened. Those things are hard to get a hold of, right? So thank you so much to the people who lent me your knives. Reviews of these two coming up. Guys, I think that I have said everything that I want to say. I should say one more thing. Disassembly, right? All of these knives are made in the United States, by the way, for anybody still hanging around and wondering. They're all made in the USA. Warranty, great here, I'm going to imagine great there. I've never heard anything bad about the warranty on any part. Ease of disassembly between all three is very easy. This was a big part of it, right? Titanium frame locks, minimal hardware, very easy to take apart. That's a big part of this. People will say, "Oh, Rick Hinderer's proprietary pivot." No, it's not. Just $1.50 for a spanner bit. Don't give me that, right? Combination of flathead screwdriver, hex head, Torx head. We'll take any of this stuff apart. It's very easy to do a field breakdown or carry the tools that are required for breakdown with you, right? There is none of these knives are specifically better than the others. Like, there is no one clear winner. These are all great knives, and it's understandable why people came to the conclusion that each of these knives has a firm place in the Holy Trinity and that it still is a thing. It's pretty easy to type in Holy Trinity knives on Google and find that these are the three that people talk about, right? Yeah, this is still a thing. I don't think that the Holy Trinity is going to be changing anytime soon, or that the term itself has died out. Because, I mean, we've got three of the most legendary knife makers to exist here, and then they're still doing their thing. And, I don't think you can specifically get, I don't know that you can actually get a full custom knife by Chris Reeve anymore. Rick Hinderer makes them, but you got to go to his shows, and he doesn't take orders, right? If you want a full custom, ironically, the one you've got the best chance of getting a hold of, is, if you've got the money, is Strider. And I mean that. If you got the money, it's pretty easy to get on Google and find a $3,000 to $5,000 Strider custom knife. And man, they're epic, but it's something that I don't expect to ever get my hands on. Anyways, super ranty. Like I said, this was going to be a 30-minute episode. This was a lot of fun. It was something I've always wanted to talk about. I hope you guys were entertained by it. Let me know your thoughts as usual. Anything you want to comment is perfectly fine with me. I will absolutely engage with you in the comments section. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on this Metal Complex logo right here and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.